Hi, I'm Wes Molebash, creator of You'll Have That and Molebashed and the upcoming graphic novel Travis Daventhorpe For The Win. And you're watching Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industry. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a very talented comic creator. I have been wanting to interview him for a long time. He's actually one of probably the last 10 or so people that I haven't had a chance to interview currently since the show started back in 2008. 12 years waiting for this interview. We're joined today by Wes Molebash, the comic creator of Molebashed, as well as You'll Have That, and of course a brand new graphic novel that I'll let him talk about. How are you doing today, Wes?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
You know, I have to start off. You're in Ohio. Obviously, the big news as of this interview is that the Cleveland Indians have finally changed their name to something respectable called the Cleveland Guardians. If you could have been on that conversation as, a sports fan that you are, what names would you have pitched, and do you actually like the names Guardians?
Guardians was on, I had like a top, and Guardians was probably third. I think I really liked the Sox, I think, was being tossed around, or the Blue Sox, one or the other, maybe both. And then the Guardians, I like the Gray Sox or Blue Sox because it sounded kind of classic and traditional. One of the names a lot of people like that I absolutely despised was Spiders. And I realized that was part of our history, but that just sounds like a very lame name. But I, for one, am happy with the Guardians name. I like that they kept, I thought they did a good, the fonts are fairly similar. They're not, I don't love the fonts, but I don't hate them either. But overall, I'm pretty excited. I'll be getting the hat whenever they're available.
What sport would be the funniest if you added a mandatory amount of alcohol to?
Ooh. How much alcohol?
As much as you think.
Tennis. Probably be more enjoyable to watch.
I think it would be. Federer just took out the referee with a beautiful ace there. That's amazing. All right, good stuff. And of course, Ted Lasso is an amazing series in itself. I love the first season. I can't wait to watch the second. And as I said in our to each other, I can't watch the first episode of the second season because apparently I'm supposed to be crying in it, and I don't want to cry.
Yeah, there's a pretty emotional scene in it, but it's handled in Ted Lasso style. I was very, very pleased. I'm excited for the rest of the season. That hope, that kindness, that overall just positive vibe that the entire show has. Breath of fresh air in this world right now. I tell you, I love it.
Do you think that Ted Lasso has saved those that watch it from their pandemic blues?
I have actually said, I think that I wonder if Ted Lasso would be as if not for COVID, where for a lot of us, COVID and the shutdowns and everything have caused a lot of depression and uncertainty and confusion. I think it was actually a blessing for a show like Ted Lasso because people needed the show to help you be kind to yourself during a dark time.
And have you been kind to yourself and your family in this?
I have been. I've had my days. How's that? It's been, I think, for the most part, we've been doing great. My family and I are already pretty indoorsy, kind of introverts. So staying home wasn't a big deal, but you gotta take care of yourself, surround yourself with good people, and it kind of takes care of itself in a way.
You've been in the comic industry for a long time now. You've been there at the beginning. You've continued on. In fact, I saw an interview with you that was only about 2 minutes long 12 years ago at Mid-Ohio Con. In true Wes Molebash style, you promoted the heck out of it, so it was pretty amazing. In another interview more recently, though, you've also talked about how you felt that the webcomic not passed you by, but it's tougher to become creative in that industry. Why do you feel that?
It is a very, how do with all due respect to webcomics, because I certainly don't want to poo-poo anybody. I think we have to you have to pick your battles. That's what my wife always says whenever our kids are arguing with us, right? About what socks they want to put on or whatever. You pick your battles. Which one do you want to actually fight for? And I think that with webcomics, you have to be prepared to constantly be looking for the next thing, the next platform, and be ready for, you need to understand algorithms. You need to understand how all these platforms work and what's going to work best for you in your creation. So when I made You'll Have That, it was before, Facebook, I don't think, was open to everybody just yet. I think MySpace was still the main social media network. The cartoon was hosted on the Viper Comics website, and at that time it was all about having a dedicated site, a hosted site, driving traffic to that site, having some, using ads and merchandise to kind of try to create revenue. And that alone was difficult because, what worked for one person doesn't work for the next person. And that's becoming even more and more, that gap wider now with social media and the way, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok now, like all these, they use algorithms. So these platforms are kind of what the users get to see based on their habits. It's just getting harder and harder to crack that algorithm, to find an audience. Now, I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying you shouldn't try it. I'm just saying there's came a point for me where I was just like, golly, I don't know. I never really did make a whole lot of money from my webcomics. It becomes a full-time job on top of a full-time job. And it's, when you have a family, it becomes hard to justify to your wife and kids why you spend so much time drawing a cartoon with not a lot of financial return. She's always been very supportive of me, but there just came a time for me where I had, okay, maybe I need to switch gears creatively and find a new way to make sure I'm always working on something, but that is more conducive to my schedule as a husband and a father and an employee. So that's the long version of why I sort of stepped away from webcomics.
Stepping away from webcomics, it's not like you stopped creating. You've obviously started to think of yourself in a larger picture. Who is your literary agent?
Her name is Jennifer Azantian. She's awesome.
How'd you find her?
So I was, when I had come up with the idea I found this website called, anyway, it's basically a database of all these agents, and you can find agents based on category of what genre you're writing and everything. And there's thousands of agents, and it has it's called Query Tracker. Now that I think of it, because I was just going to say, it helps you track who you're submitting to. It's called querytracker.com. And it's absolutely free, and it's a great resource. And so I found my first agent through there. We were rocking and rolling for a while, and then due to some, she decided she wanted to close her agency. And it was on very good terms. She was awesome. She helped me, after she closed, she gave me some advice to help me find a new agent, and I found Jennifer through there. So yeah, I found two agents through Query Tracker.
And this, of course, is leading to, and this is a roundabout way to finally get to why we're here today, not only to talk with you, but of course, it's to talk about your graphic novel that you're almost done creating, if I recall the book.
It's called, the first book is called Travis Daventhorpe For The Win, and it'll be the first book in a 4-book series. I just finished inking it and lettering it, and now I just last night started coloring it. So the colors are due in October. So, and then there will still be some odds and ends to do. First book should be out in winter of 2023.
We have to wait that long?
I know, it's a long time, but I'm hoping it'll be worth it. This book is going to be chock full of awesome stuff, lots of extra story. I don't know. I'm making the book that I would have wanted to read at a middle grade age. I want when the kid opens this book, or an adult, I think, anyone will enjoy this series, but when you open it up, I want you to get sucked into another world, literally and figuratively. I want it to be special. So we're working hard to make it something really, really cool.
So what's the concept of it? What's the elevator pitch?
It's the classic King Arthur type story. It's about a young boy named Travis Daventhorpe. He's super smart, nerdy kid. He's in 7th grade. He was advanced to grade because he's so smart. He's kind of awkward. He has his best friend is a robot version of himself called Travbot. He discovers that he is the legendary hero of a country in another dimension. So he has to get prepared. He has this awesome sword, and he has a wizard guide, kind of like Gandalf, and he's just, he's surrounded with some cool friends. And during the course of his adventure, he's going to meet a lot of strange people. He's going to go from being sort of a loner to having a lot of awesome people in this corner that he never would have dreamed possible. It'll be a cool adventure, and I'm real excited about it. I hope people love it.
Would you say that this graphic novel, that this new passion to create the novel you always wanted, got you out of your rut in your career?
Oh yeah. So in 2016, I fell into a deep depression that was related to my day job at the time, and it destroyed me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and creatively. I was just tapped out, and I was drawing a cartoon at the time called Molebashed that was about me and my family and our first son, and I had every intention of continuing that, but I fell into this depression and I just quit. I've never just quit a cartoon before. I mean, I've ended cartoons, but I've always had a plan to sew up all the loose endings and let everyone know when the last one's going to be. But this one, I just flat out I'm not drawing it anymore. I'm just done. I didn't tell anybody, no explanation. Several months where I had no drive to draw or anything. As I started getting healthy again, I went to counseling and got some medication, and all that stuff helped a lot. As I started getting kind of back into swing, I started playing around, do I bring this cartoon back? And this is about when I decided it's time to step away from webcomics. And I realized that two things. One, I couldn't maintain the webcomic schedule. Just like I said before, it was just hard to do that. Because webcomics isn't just drawing the comic. It's all the other junk that goes with it. It's making sure your website's safe and secure, it's not getting hacked, and all the other crud you got to do to promote it. So there was a lot that went into it. It wasn't just the drawing. So even when I went down to like once a week or 2 times a week, it was still, the workload was still pretty heavy with the other stuff. So I was playing with my boys one morning. My oldest was like 3 and my youngest was not even a year old. I realized I didn't have anything for them and that they would enjoy. All my cartoons had like adult themes, That's when I came up with this. That was when I came up with this idea for Travis Daventhorpe. I thought it'd be cool to have this little kid fight a robot dinosaur. And that's what happens in this first book, by the way. Spoiler alert. Okay. And I realized I could do that and kind of work. I didn't have, the deadlines were whatever I made them because I was pitching, So if I could have a day where I drew all day, great. If it, was a week or 2 before I could draw, it just worked. And I was able to get that creative fire back. And so, yeah, in many ways, it kind of saved my creativity.
Technology has evolved a lot in the 20 plus years that, we've been reading comics or you've been in the industry. Between Zuda, which way back when, Zuda and Comixology were the two. I remember seeing Comixology back in C2E2 when they were first starting out. And the ability for digital comics, like on an actual platform, was foreign, other than those that were in webcomics already with their established sites, etc. It's been noted recently that you, of course, love traditional media. You love the fact that ink were your jam, I'm going to say, for a number of years, and that you finally evolved. Why did you wait so long to switch over?
I think it's a similar story for a lot of artists. I think still prefer the look of my art traditional. I look at some stuff I've drawn with pen and ink and some of the line some of the lines I get with my brush pen, I can't quite get with a digital brush pen. Those pretty close. But I think the main thing that kept me from taking the leap is the perception that is like cheating or fake art. Yeah, and even after I switched to the iPad, I still held on to that a little bit. I still felt kind of like guilty. But then I started realizing, I'm not cheating. There's nothing that I couldn't do. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. There's nothing that the iPad lets me do that I couldn't do analog. It would just take longer, right? So like, I had a light box and a scanner, and I can cut and paste and do all that stuff with an X-Acto knife, but with an iPad and with Photoshop and Procreate is what I use primarily. That takes all of those functions and puts them in one program and makes it more efficient. So, it's a tool, and you're using the tool, and you're developing a technique, and it gives you a certain style. So all that to say, it's not at all fake art or less legitimate. It's just another way of doing things. And honestly, I'm not sure that, given the deadlines and stuff that exist for comic books and graphic novels anymore, I'm not even sure it's efficient to work traditionally. Not just time, but for your own health. I was just we had a special little panel for first second creators, Faith Aaron Hicks and Carrie Peach and Win Pham and Ngozi. I can't remember her last name. She writes Check Please. Mark Siegel. They're all talking about this very thing, about the limits that cartoonists cross trying to get a book done, to the extent that they're hurting themselves physically. Back pain, wrist pain. Sanity is a big one. So I think that working digitally helps just speed up a lot of things. I've really enjoyed working digitally. It's also a lot of fun. The iPad is a blast to draw on. My entire book's being drawn on an iPad. Yeah, it's awesome.
I was going to ask if it helped or hurt your creative process, but obviously it's definitely helped you creatively. So that's great.
It's been it's actually, in many ways, I feel like I still don't think I quite get the lines I always want, but overall, I am bolder. I feel less scared to make mistakes. And there's, pages in this graphic novel I can't wait for people to see that are just, I don't know that I would have taken the risk to do some of these pages traditionally had I not. The digital gives me the freedom. Like if I make a mistake, I can really, fix it quite easily.
Speaking of this graphic novel, obviously, I'm excited to see it. Like, send me a link whenever that's available, because I want to be like first purchase type thing here in Canada. So I want to be your first Canadian customer as well.
All right.
That being said, though, what did you draw from to create your characters in this book?
Lots of things. This is actually a fun thing. I drew from Lord of the Rings, Legend of Zelda, the Troll Hunters cartoon series, Last Kids on Earth, Big Hero 6 was a big influence. Video games, not just Zelda, but video games in general. There's a lot of video game influences, like little video game pop-up menus and stuff, but it's part of the magic. I think it's easier when you see it to understand, like it's the magic system has these little alerts and it's all kind of like, there's a visual style that the visual style is stolen from Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't know if you've played that game.
Oh, love it.
Oh, and so one of the things I love in that game, I'm going to talk about for a minute, is when she's using her, what does she call that thing in her ear?
Oh,
doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
it's going to bug us.
The holograms that appear,
And there's those little purple and pink shapes and stuff that are kind of in the periphery, kind of let you know that she's in that view.
Zone. Yeah.
I love that. I love that little, that's when you knew the technology was working. And so I kind of stole that visual idea for my book. That lets you know when the magic is present.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Video games, I think, are underrepresented in comics. Being inspired by video games to create your graphic novels is awesome to see. I mean, I'm sure not many creators will actually admit to that.
There's really good storytelling happening. Like Horizon Zero Dawn is a great example of, like, story is so mysterious, and the way you kind of pick up on it is through discovering the little audio clips and things, and then there's like that point halfway through where it all clicks, you realize where you're at, and it's like, oh my gosh, and it's just rad. I love that. And then it just leads to a very satisfying payoff at the end. Yeah. And then I'm replaying Red Dead Redemption 2 right now. Oh. And I haven't replayed a game from start to finish in over a decade easily. But this game, I've been trying to study. I've never written a story before this graphic novel. I'm a total noob. So I've been learning everything I can, especially about like story structure. And so when I think about Red Dead Redemption, I can see that story structure. I can see the little things they do at the beginning of the game that set up important things at the end of the game, things that you might not be thinking about. And then at the end of the game, it's this huge payoff for the player because you're like, oh, I remember when I did that mission and now this is happening. And so I'm excited because I feel like people are figuring out how to use the video game format and not just make
copies.
Yeah, it's you can create a narrative and let the player be immersed in that and push it forward, and it's really rad. And so yeah, it's easy for games to influence other mediums, even more so than I would say, like, you look at like Adventure Time video game. I would say like the vibe of video games are more of an influence rather than a particular game. So you have like the 8-bit chiptune, some of the classic video game type quests, getting a sword or fighting a certain beast or whatever, and that's all great. But I feel like, you look those two games you just kind of mentioned, and even like games like Mass Effect, where you're seeing real narrative. All that to say is it's exciting times.
The technology in consoles and like I just recently upgraded my PC a couple of years ago, and it's like 7 years since I had upgraded my computer. So just to see the new technology, the graphics have just greatly improved from PC to console to whatever. So you're automatically immersed in a technological world, so to speak. So the fact that you're bringing it into your graphic novel, I think is awesome and amazing, and I'm truly excited. I mean, I'm excited about all comics in general, but to see and hear the passion that you're talking about with the story is just it's infectious. So
oh, congratulations! Good. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
What about life fascinates you?
That's a great question. A lot of things. Something I've been thinking about here lately is, we live in it feels like such a tumultuous time right now with politics and social issues. And these are important things. And I certainly have my fair share of opinions, and I think we all should. But there's still a lot of good stuff happening, especially in the world around you. I don't know. I'm becoming more grateful of the things that bring me joy. My wife, my kids, video games, reading. I really love reading. I've recently started smoking a pipe. It's just been a really awesome time to just chill and be slow and think. Those are the things that have become really important to me, and the things that I kind of hold on to during this season right now, where it just seems like there's so much uncertainty and so much vitriol between people who disagree on things. Sometimes I just want to say, hey, slow down. Life's still good.
At what point are we good enough?
I don't think we ever are. And I think that's something that I have only recently really kind of come to terms with. Like, I remember feeling like when I had my webcomic, like if I could just get this many readers, if I could make X amount of money, I would feel like I had arrived. And I was never able to achieve those goals. And then it became, well, maybe I can pitch a book idea and I get an agent. And then I got an agent, and I still didn't feel what I thought I would feel. And then I thought, well, maybe I just need to get a book deal. And then I got a book deal. I still didn't feel the way. And then about halfway through, I'm not done with my book yet, but after getting all the inks done and starting the lettering, which forced me to go back through all the art I made. I just felt like a total imposter. I hated everything I had drawn, and I went through a really dark time creatively. Pushed through because I have deadlines, you can't stop. But, talk to other artists and they've all dealt with the same thing. But all that to say, I don't think we will ever feel good enough. I don't think we'll ever feel qualified. I don't think we'll ever feel like we've arrived or we have hit the benchmark we're supposed to hit. That can be a depressing thing or it can be a good thing. You're always growing. But I think it's also important that we have to find our joy outside of our career and our art. We have to find happiness and contentment and satisfaction in other aspects of our lives that are arguably more important than our careers. And I'm talking mostly, for me, it's my faith, my family, those kinds of things that help keep me grounded.
Well, I mean, I think you kind of answered this already, but when did your life change for the better?
When I met my wife, probably. That's cliche, isn't it? But
it's a common good answer, though, because she's probably in the room.
She'll be happy I said that. For real, though, she's the best thing ever. She makes me a better person, a better man. She talks me down from cliffs and ledges. In fact, she did it yesterday on the way home we had a family fun day yesterday. And on the ride home, I was sharing a fear with her, and she hit me with some awesome wisdom because she's awesome like that. I think meeting her, marrying her was the best decision, best choice I ever made. There's a lot of things I would change, but that's one I would not change.
I don't know if you're psychic or what, because your answers are leading into questions that I'm about to ask. So
setting them up, man. Setting them up.
I was going to ask, what was the wisest thing that you've heard someone say?
Man, I've been blessed to have a lot of really awesome people. Let's do this. This is the wisest advice I ever got from a mentor, a creative mentor. And it's one I think of often. One I tell other people off. I've passed this on. I was 21 years old, and I discovered a syndicated cartoonist named Wes Molebash. He draws a cartoon called Fraz. Great little cartoon. Started emailing him. This is before I had any webcomics, and I was still trying to become a syndicated newspaper cartoonist. And I would send him batches of my cartoons for him to critique, and he very kindly and generously gave me wonderful critique, really helped develop me as an artist and thickened my skin. And I remember asking him, do you think, and this had been, months of back and forth, and he may have been at his wit's end with me, constantly doubting myself. And he said, Wes, there are so many obstacles in your journey to getting syndicated. Don't be one yourself. That has stuck with me ever since. There are a lot of things, whatever creative goal you're going for, there are a lot of obstacles, and you can't control them. There's gatekeepers, markets, what's trending, what's not trending. Very, very, very subjective. And you cannot control that. But you can control yourself. You can control your work ethic. You can control how much you're going to beat yourself up or how little you're going to beat yourself up, whether you're going to decide for yourself is done is better than perfect, all these things. So knowing that I myself can be my biggest obstacle, knowing that I have the power to remove that obstacle is pretty awesome. And knowing that's one less thing I got to worry about is whether or not I'm going to get something done. So that's probably the wisest thing someone said to me in regards of my creative endeavors.
That's a really good answer. I love that. Everyone has one or two people that inspire them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
Man, that's such a great question. And there's so many. Well, just probably the two biggest creators when I was a kid were Bill Watterson, who made Calvin and Hobbes, and Jeff Smith. Both of them are Ohio guys. Both of them are brilliant cartoonists. And both of them had kind of two different paths, but very much in control of what they created, and that was very inspiring to me. So, and they loved the craft of comics. It wasn't just I mean, a thing they did. It was they loved, Bill Watterson loved the 4-panel format of comic strips, and Jeff Smith loves the long form graphic novel format. So those guys were really influential on me, and still are.
Anyone personally?
Man, a lot. So my wife had some great pastors in my life. Local guy named John Victor took me under his wing. He's an artist, wonderful artist. He used to do a lot of cartoons and graphic design work for Ohio State University, and he lives around where I live. Especially, she's very artistic. So I remember watching her draw when I was a kid.
As an artist, what was the first thing that you drew that made you realize, yes, I can do this as a career?
Ooh. As a career, I would say when I first, so I'd been drawing and making up characters since I was in elementary school. But as a career, I think when I was in my early 20s, my late teens, very early 20s, and getting that feedback from Jeff Millett and other cartoonists of his ilk, very validating, and made me feel like, yes, I have the skills, I have the potential. It's just finding the right recipe.
From a professional standpoint, you're obviously a very successful artist and comic creator with, of course, many books and works under your proverbial belt. Yourself personally successful?
Man, another great question. I don't know that I do. I feel there's still so much I want to achieve. The first book hasn't even come out yet, and I'm really, there's this self-doubt in me that's like, it's not going to sell. No one's going to buy this thing. But I hope they do, whatever that means. This is where, like I said before, I'm just trying to find contentment in things that are right here. I don't want to miss the forest for the trees, I have a great life. I have a wonderful family. We're paying the bills. I will say that it is very, very satisfying to get paid. And I don't mean this in a braggy way. I'm just saying there's a really good feeling when you get a substantial amount of money and who wants you to draw. And I can show my wife, hey, look what we did. We can pay off, be essentially, debt free. Yeah, that even feels weird to talk about because I'm not trying to be braggy. I'm just saying, like, you chase this dream for as long as I have, and you're making a few $100s here or there, not knowing if you're ever going to be able to have a career out of it. And then all of a sudden it seems very possible. That's a very validating feeling. Do I feel successful? I don't know. That's for others to decide, I suppose. I definitely want to keep making comics for as long as possible. It brings me joy.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
I had this conversation with another group of guys on another podcast, and failure is I think a lot of times failure is a lot like success, and that what feels like failure to me may be not to someone else, and what may seem like a lack of success to me may seem like success to someone else. I think failure is one of those things where you're always learning from projects, and even if something didn't work out the way you wanted to, you still learn, you still gain experience from that season, and you'll put that into the next thing. It'll eventually, if you keep working at it and keep your guard up, and it just increases the odds that good things are going to happen. Failure is one of those things where it stings. It can lead to feelings of defeat, disappointment, and those are normal. It's like that Walt Disney saying, and that they made Meet the Robinsons. The whole theme of that movie is keep moving forward. Even in your failure, you keep moving forward, and that's all you can do.
You have the younger generation with you and your two boys. You are creating a graphic novel, obviously, to show them that anything is possible. How can they inspire the generation that follows them if they want to be creative themselves?
Here's something that I will teach and I think this goes for anybody. I had made up my mind that I was going to chase the dream of being a full-time cartoonist. I was going to chase that dream, and I'd either achieve it or die trying. And I felt like that's teaching, in both those situations, is teaching my boys a lesson. If I achieve it, it shows that hard work and determination can pay off. And if I don't achieve it, it shows them that There are some things that bring you so much joy and happiness that they're worth pursuing, even if they don't pay off in the end. It's never not a good idea to pursue a dream. And you can do it. You can do it with family, you can do it with kids. So that's what I would want my boys to learn. I hope that they teach their kids and so on and so forth. Like, it's never not a bad idea to pursue a dream, regardless of the outcome.
Well, Wes, I do hate to say this, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I just want to thank you so much for your candor and your time for telling those that, you know, anything is possible in their life.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I had a lot of fun. This was great.
I want to ask, though, of course, before I let you go, where can we find you on social media and everything?
Make it as easy as possible on pretty much every major platform. If you look up the Wes Molebash, you should be able to find me. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Even though I'm not really using TikTok a whole lot right now, I'm still trying to figure that out. But pretty much everywhere else, you can find me under that handle.
Okay, I do have to ask this, and this is maybe my Canadian coming through, but what is the deal with saying "the" in front of everything when it comes to Ohio?
That's the big joke. I think it's supposed to make it seem like this is the official, this is the real Ohio State. I thought it was funny to put in front of my name because my last name is pretty obscure. If you're looking for Wes Molebash online, you're probably going to find me because I'm pretty sure I'm the only one.
That ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. Again, thank you, Wes, for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I can now check your name off of the last 10 people in Webcomics that I have yet to interview.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for that. And of course, you can find this interview and literally 1,000 others on our website, tgtmedia.com, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/tgtmedia. As I say every week, everyone has a story to tell, and it's up to me to help bring that out. And thanks again for listening. Hey, all, Kurt Sasso here from Two Geeks Talking. If you like this video and these quick clips here, make sure you take a look at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/tgtmedia. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe as well. Hit the bell to make sure you get notifications, of course, from videos like this here. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching over the years, and keep listening and watching for new and exciting interviews with talented and creative people in the entertainment industry. I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. Thank you so much.